And Bill in Charlotte, North Carolina, thank you for your patience. Welcome to your day.
Great, thank you. I got a question about amending my soil for my raised vegetable bed. I've got local dirt that I've amended with my own compost, but it still seems very, very hard. And I've got as much compost as anybody can ever need. I give it away. I've got so much. But I'm wondering, what can I do to amend the soil? Would adding sand do good or bad?
Whoa, Tony, you raised your hand there. If you want to talk about the sand, both you or I or Amanda, you talk about the sand and clay issue. But go right ahead, Tony, with regard to the amendments. If you want to talk about the sand, go for it as well.
Well, let me throw in gypsum first. He said he had a very hard soil. Gypsum is a form of calcium. It's calcium sulfate, and it has also ability of making soil more pliable or more tillable, or it increases the tilt of the soil. In other words, it breaks it up, but you need to add it for a good many years, so much a year, and it takes a good little bit of gypsum, and it will soften that soil up. Amanda?
Well, and I think what we always do, when I'm over there listening to him, he tells us master gardeners the most important thing for any amendment is organic matter, organic matter, organic matter. And of course, especially with the increased heat that we have now, Bob, we know that organic matter decreases every year. So I think that although your caller thinks that he may have enough in there, we lose organic matter every year, and it is what I would recommend, because the sand, unless you're interested in having an adobe form in your raised bed, I think that's what we usually find happens when we start trying to put that sand in with clay. Isn't that what you've run into, Bob?
Exactly, Amanda. But also, Bill, I love this organic matter. I'm not sure how many times you said organic matter, Amanda. I counted 5 times, but it's critical. And on clay soils, some work done out of NC State where they looked at clay, looking at peat moss versus composted material or even composted pine bark. The peat moss just doesn't work for us on clay, but the composted pine bark or any other material that you can recycle from your landscape, put it into the soil. And Amanda's exactly right. The breakdown is so rapid because of our high temperatures here, all this active period of microbial activity. Keep on adding the organic matter is really important. Like what Tony talked about, the importance of gypsum. I like to also mention the fact with regard to the sand, and Bill, this was a great question, and for our listeners, I did not ask you to ask us about sand. But it's interesting, people think that when you add sand to clay, that because we go to our beaches and see how well-drained sands are, the same will apply with clay. Not exactly. You would have to have at least an 80% sand mix in order to have a well-drained soil. Like Amanda said, you could create adobe bricks if you use less than that amount. So what's really difficult, if you want to go sand with this, you basically have to take out, I would say, a foot of soil from your garden, discard 60%, 70% of that other material, add all that sand and mix it in with the clay and reintroduce it back into your garden. It doesn't make sense from a homeowner standpoint. What does make sense is to get something cheap and inexpensive, like perhaps fallen leaves. If you do collect your lawn clippings, throw them into your compost pile and move them into the soil. All that would work really well, and to avoid adding any sand unless you're willing to put in adequate sand. So 80% of that final mix is comprised of sand.
And Bob, if I might add, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir. Bill, did you have another follow-up with that?
Well, I just had one real quick question. Is it possible to put in too much compost?
Tony, have you ever seen a situation like that? I guess it's possible.
It's almost impossible in South Carolina because it degrades every winter. When the temperatures are warm, it degrades all winter long. It's not like up north where you put a compost down or organic matter down one time and it lasts for many, many years. But you can, if you get really a lot of it, sometimes it does hold more moisture, but you can solve that by adding the little bit coarser products, like you was talking about pine bark. Mm-hmm. That's a little coarser. Mm-hmm. The things that are a little coarser, and that way that also improves drainage, Bob.
Yeah, and Bill, too, with regard to the amount you put in there, you don't want to be planting in this composted material, of course, but you want to make sure it's well amended. And also, Bill, I love this question about improving soil, cover crops. And if you guys wanted to talk about some of these cover crops, and we've got cool season and warm season cover crops, so instead of letting your garden lie fallow during the fall and winter months, we could put in some really interesting ryegrasses, for example. Or Tony, you have any other thoughts about some other cool season as well as warm season cover crops?
Bob, one of the things I see a lot of is nematodes in home gardens and nematodes in farms and all. And we've been doing a lot of work in using the mustard type family. And you can buy different types of mustards, and really I just use a lot of Southern Giant Curl mustard. I plant it and let it get deep, and you till that into the soil. It adds organic matter, plus when it comes up through the soil, it produces a gas that actually helps you control your nematodes. And that's one thing, most homeowners, there's no control in a home garden except for either is something along that line, something natural to control it. There's no chemical control or anything that you can use. So that works real well, plus it adds that nice organic matter.
And if I can jump in, this year I had an area that was kind of compacted, and I overseeded with daikon radishes, which have a great deep root. And we've enjoyed eating them, which was a side benefit, but they've gone down, Tony, I'd say 6 or 7 inches in the soil, and they have really opened that soil up, and I'm real excited about the results we've gotten for them, and they were pretty foolproof. Nobody seems to want to eat daikon radishes particularly.
But it also has that same effect like the mustard. You can till that top end, and it will help kind of halfway, let's say, naturally fumigate the soil, Bob.
That sounds terrific. Well, Bill, I'm just really happy that you're still going to persist and try to improve that soil. You're really on the right track with this whole issue of using organic material, trying to improve the condition of your soil. Great job.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for calling in.